Hello, people. This is Mac with Mac Commentary. And I also have with me today Bob. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real good, Mac. Thank you. How about yourself?
Uh, it's everything is good, Bob.
That's
Um,
great.
I had a good walk today, and that's always takes away a lot of my stress and everything. But Bob, today we uh we had we're going to discuss the presidential announcement by Dr. Cornell West. And I like to tell people a little about Cornell West. Dr. West is he's an American philosopher, political activist, social critic, actor, and public intellectual. And he's the grandson of a Baptist minister. And what and Dr. West focuses on the role of race, gender, and class in American society and the means by which people act and react to their radical conditionness. A socialist, West draws intellectual contribution from multiple traditions, including Christianity, the Black church, populism, Marxism, neo-pragmatism, and transcendentalism. Among the most influential books are Race Matters, 1993, and Democracy Matters, 2004. But Dr. West has written, I believe, approximately 20 books that's out there. And you can find those books, and you can search them out on the internet. But right now, Dr. West has announced his candidacy to run for president, I believe, with the people, under the people banner. And let's listen to him right now announce that, Bob.
Okay.
Can you talk about why you've decided to run for president of the United States?
First, Sister Amy, I want to salute you. You are an exemplar of longevity, of integrity, and consistency. And we go back many, many decades. So I just want to always begin on that note. You're putting a smile on Brother George and Sister Dorothy's face, your precious parents. But no, my announcement of running for president of the United States to be head of the empire to help dismantle it in such a way that poor and working people would be at the very center, at the very core of our vision of what a good society actually is. It has to do, as you can imagine, with these very bleak times, these very desperate times. So it's a kind of act of desperation. I'm 70 years old. I've been at this for 55 years, and I have a calling that flows out of the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Edward Said and Chief Joseph and Dorothy Day and Grace Lee Boggs and Louisa Marino. All of those are the best of America. And I think we're at such a low point that America needs to be reintroduced to its best. And its best has always been the movements for justice, the struggles for freedom, the solidarity based on a fundamental commitment to the dignity of those Sly Stone calls everyday people. And there's no doubt in my mind that the two-party system now is a major impediment for the empowerment of poor and working people. I'm thoroughly convinced that, of course, the neo-fascist Republican Party has already made it very clear that they're tied to big business and big military, big tech, and so forth. And the milquetoast neoliberal Democratic Party strikes me as being incapable of taking seriously the fundamental needs of poor and working people, not just here, but around the world. The militarism abroad, $7 billion frozen for Afghan brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, and what's been AFRICOM in Africa, and what's been going on in the Middle East. Thank God that you keep track of the precious Palestinian brothers and sisters, and all the hell that they're catching. Is you have it every day, and I thank God that you do. Why? Because Palestinian peoples deserve to have a visibility in terms of their suffering and ways in which they can attempt to get out from under. Same would be true, of course, for our Jewish brothers and sisters in a Russia or in a France where their rights are being violated. We're wrestling with organized greed. We're wrestling with institutionalized hatred. We saw that with our precious gay brothers and lesbian sisters and queer siblings in the earlier report. But it's also a matter of routinized indifference. There's an indifference to the plight of the vulnerable. More and more, it's becoming not just a fad and a fashion, it's becoming a normalized way of life. And that is what leads toward wholesale fascism, not just here, but in other parts of the world. And we've seen it, of course, in Hungary. You see it. We saw it in Brazil. We can go on in this regard. So for me, it's really a matter of trying to be consistent with what I've been about for the last 55 years.
Cornell, you talk about militarism. I want to ask you about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In March of last year, you told The New Yorker, "We must try to stop the war, recognizing that the American empire has little or no moral authority when it comes to violation of international law and the overthrow of national sovereignty, as in Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia." You've also called Putin, you've been severely critical of President Putin for the invasion. Talk about your views on what happened, what is happening, and how the war needs to end.
Well, one, I think you have the clash of two empires. The Russian Empire is a deeply wounded empire. It's had its territory cut back. Of course, its economy is shrinking. And then you've got the American Empire, which is the most powerful empire in the history of the world. In fact, it's the 68th empire out of the 70, going back to the beginning of the human species. And so on the one hand, you have the promise of the American Empire to the elites in the Russian Empire: we will not move an inch. And within decades, 14 of the satellite countries of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, are part of NATO. There's missiles right on the borders and boundaries of the Russian Empire. Now, we know empires behave like empires. I mean, if there's missiles in Canada and Mexico, the U.S. government would blow them to smithereens quick. We saw it in Cuba in 1962. So that empires behave like empires. They're greedy. They're driven by predatory capitalist dispositions. They're obsessed with hierarchy. They're concerned with domination and conquest. The Alexander the Great, associated with a grand empire.
Okay, Bob. We heard some of Dr. West's goals there and aspirations as to why he wants to run for president. And it just goes back to show you that he's been a staunch Democrat as long as I can remember. And matter of fact, I don't understand why these guys can come out like him and others like him, and they can voice their support for the world, you know. And they talk about poor people, and they always lump black people in with all the other creatures of earth that has undergone something, but nobody on this earth, I don't believe, you can correct me, Bob, has been treated worse than the black American has. I mean, we haven't had too much, for the most part, most of our people haven't had too much of a chance to do anything about it. Some made it out, some are doing well, like Mr. West himself. And I just wonder, Bob, is why, even if he's running for president, like you have said, and I heard someone else say that he has his chances of becoming the president is nothing. It'd be like a snowball in hell, before that happened. But he's got a great platform here, and maybe for whatever reason he's running for president, I hope it can be for something that's going to benefit our people. Because first of all, I think that all of these intellectuals, like Dr. West, they should foremost be concerned about the plight of the Black Americans. And most of them are not. I was listening to Glenn Lowry. He's not concerned about the plight of the Black Americans. They all say that, oh, well, it's something, they've lost their spirituality. Our Blacks have lost their spirituality, so they need a divine inspiration or something to that effect. I heard him say that during an interview with Dr. West. However that may be, but they don't try to look at the cause. There's a cause and effect to everything in life, Bob. And these guys just don't get it. How do you see what you listen to Dr. West and what his aspirations are to be the president of these United States? How do you compare his aspirations with what he should be aspiring to do for Black people in particular? But he has not outlined that. He simply talk about everybody else, as I heard, the humpbacks, as Dr. Claude Anderson say, the gays, the Hispanics, the Russians, not the Russians, the Iraqis, the Arabs, the Jews, and all of the people like that. They're doing quite. If I look at those people, they're doing quite well. I just want to know what do they plan on. Why isn't he talking more about what the Blacks can do, like reparations? So, what's your take on that, Bob?
Well, Mac, I think that listening to Professor West, he's a typical intellectual who uses language that most of us out here on the street don't understand. But he could set himself apart from all of the other political politicians that are running for president by doing one thing, in my opinion. He could use very simple street language and tell all of the Negroids in America, and if he's running for president of the United States, he ought to be focused on the people of the United States, and more so on the people of African descent or Negroids in America. And he could do this by setting himself apart from the Caucasoids that are also running, and the other few Negroids that are running in both the Democrat and the Republican parties. He could say this simple sentence, which I think any man on the street or lady on the street could understand. Once I am elected, it will be my number one goal to assure that slave descendants in America get reparations. And he could even make it simpler than that. He could say, I, as a candidate for presidency of the United States, am 104% in support of slave descendants getting reparations. And for those of you out there who do not understand what reparations are, you don't know the word, this is what it means that I will do once I am president. I will put in your mailbox, in your checking account, in your savings account, or wherever you want me to put it, 350,000 $1 bills or $10 bills or $100 bills, whatever denomination of greenback you desire, in your mailbox or in your checking account or in your bank account. That's what a reparation is. It's a payment to you who support me for doing what you did to build this country and make it so that I, an intellectual who served for two of the biggest universities, calling themselves Christian universities, Harvard, Princeton, and I'm now at a Christian university called Union Theological Seminary. We are all followers of Christ, and I am doing this because in my conversation with my God, God told me I should do it. So that's what I plan to do. And I think if he made such an announcement, he would have hooplas all over the United States from descendants of slaves. Now, he would have, on the other hand, he'd get highly criticized by the Caucasoids and the Republicans and the Democrats. But he shouldn't care about that because he's not running with their parties. He's running with the People's Party. And if the People's Party is for the people, they would want slave descendants to have that reparation payment as well. So he's got a winning platform if he were to make such a statement, but he won't do that. And I'm going to pass judgment. Well, no, I take that back. I'm not going to pass judgment because Scripture says, "How can I judge the splinter in my brother's eye without being aware of the timber in my own?" So I'm not going to pass any judgment. I'm just going to give my opinion. I don't think that they'll do that. I don't think he or his campaign or the People's Campaign will do that because it will not be politically viable, in my opinion.
Well, tell me this,
But I
Bob.
think, say
What
again?
what do you think about about how he has parted ways with the Democrats? Now he's been a staunch Democrat, like I said, for years and decades, really, and he supported uh, everybody that you can think of that was on the Democratic platform for the last 6 or 7 decades, right? And now he,
Right.
what, and
Sorry.
the Democrats have been doing some things that, like the war they're waging over there in Ukraine, and also the Democrats they are more with the military industrial complex, much more so than the Republicans were with the war they're
Yes.
waging. And this is one of the things that Mr. West, Dr. West, has gone against the Democrats on. I mean, is this is one of the things? Why do you think he's doing that?
Well, perhaps because in all of his years of service, like he said, he's 70 years old now, and he's been watching this for 55 years since he was 15 years old. He's come to realize, since he is such a devout Christian, from what he had says himself, maybe he's come to realize that the Republicans and the Democrats are not truly Christian. They speak with a forked tongue. and he's fed up with that. And maybe that's why he left Harvard and Princeton and went to the Union Theological Seminary, because perhaps they're a much more Christian organization, because that's what America is, a Christian nation that has wreaked havoc under the banner and the flag of Christianity all over the world. And he is fed up with that, perhaps. I don't know. But I would say this, that it's truly duplicitous behavior on the part of these universities like Harvard and like Princeton, because he was at their theological schools when he was there, for them to present themselves as Christian universities. And I think they read the same scripture that I read, and what they appear to profess on a global basis is the antithesis of what's in scripture. Love thy brother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. And if you look at America today, every one of those rules is being violated on a moment-by-moment basis somewhere in this country. And I think perhaps Dr. West is fed up with that. He wants to show that he is a true Christian, so he wants to lead the nation out of this diabolical stance that it's been on for the last 50 to 75 years. And perhaps that's what he wants to do as president of these United States.
But you know, what you just outlined there is that it's right on point there, as far as I can tell. Well, one of the things that really gets me, Bob, is that, like you pointed out, this is a Christian nation was based on the fundamentals of Christianity, but they've always used Christianity to do their devilment, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like slavery. Yes. They used Christianity and twisted around the scriptures to fit their agenda there, just like they've done everything else. Like they've somehow or another, I don't know how they're twisting the scriptures right now, but as you stated that Dr. West is a Christian, and yet he says nothing about, just as the Democrats do as well, they say nothing about the homosexuality, the LGBTQ, and all of that. All of these people have a right to live, I agree. But my question is, biblically, is it the right thing? Is it correct? Is it sinful? I mean, based on the Bible. That's what I can't try to wrap my head around, all these people going around talking about the Christian way and all of this here, and yet they go out here and they support people, transgenders, and I understand a lot of these transgenders are having problems, Bob, psychological, from what they've done. So how can these people call themselves Christians, and yet they can support this? And you go and read Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible there, and you will see what happened with Lot and what God did during that time period. So what do you think this is? Do you think they really believe in the Bible, or is this just some talk that they're doing, Bob?
Well, I think that Dr. West probably sees the contradictions just as you see them, just as you've articulated them. And perhaps he's fed up with that behavior, And that's not the reason that he's not running as a Democrat, who, as you point out, he's been a member of that environment all of those 55 plus, or every year that he was a member of that environment, most of his 55 years of activity. But now I don't think that most of the people who profess a love of God really believe it in their hearts. I think they render lip service. These are just my thoughts. I'm not saying that this is the way they are. This is what I think. I'm not judging them on what they think. I mean, what they do. I'm just telling what I think. I know what's in my heart. I know how I used to be for 40 years plus of duplicitous behavior, pretending to be a Christian when in fact living a devilish life. And I think that that's, from what I see out here in America, that's the way most of our people live, be they Caucasoid, be they Negroid, or be they Mongoloid. We say one thing, but we live just the opposite. And for some of that, we're not to blame. That's the environment we're in. America is a devilish nation. It professes to be a Christian nation, but it's a devilish nation. And all you have to do is listen to these politicians when they go on television. And the news reporter will ask them a question, and they will just lie, straight up lie, and just smile. And the reporter, instead of calling them on the lie, they'll go to something else. To me,
Yeah,
that's devilishness.
because they part of that lie, Bob, and that's the same thing. I was watching a guy who comes on. They call him constitutional audits, and these people they talk to. They go into this particular town and they can record or do whatever they want to on public property. And yet these police officers, they throw them out, they do whatever, violating their First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and even 14th Amendment rights, you know? And by doing these things, they found that not only does the city council in that township cover for the chief, but the mayor covers for him. And then they go to the district attorney, and the district attorney will write a letter to keep records from them getting the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act documents. You follow me? And they all working, like you say, in some type of duplicity to cover for each other and keep that police chief from losing his job, you know, and that's what you call pure corruption, Bob, and that's at the lowest level of politics in this country. When you get to a township, right?
Right.
So I mean, so you can imagine how complicated and more sophisticated it gets as you go up. But to move right along here, Bob, with the looking at the situation with the Democrats, we were talking about the military-industrial complex. How, I mean, and this is one of the things that seem that Dr. West is against is the military-industrial complex and how they spending all of this money over in Ukraine and all the money they've spent over in Iraq and Afghanistan. They spent money over in, and they got 800 bases around the world right now, Bob, trying to maintain that power, their hegemony, you know, throughout the world. And I believe he may be looking at that as well. Now he's going against that type of world domination and imperialism, right? That the Democrats seem to be headed straight for, you know, trying to keep going in this country. So, and he's also against the corporations who are controlling the Democratic Party. As he stated, the Democrats, I mean the Republicans, acknowledge they are controlled by the uh, uh, oligarchs, the businesses in this country. And the same thing is applicable now with the Democrat. It used to be for the people, by the people. So how do you see him taking that particular stance against the Democrats, going just the opposite of what the Democrats are doing right now, Bob?
Well, I think that's perhaps why he chose not to run as a Democrat, because number one, I don't think that he would get that nomination. But secondly, I don't think that Professor West is serious and sincere about wanting to be president. And I think this is a last minute dance on his part to take advantage of America's capitalist system. He served at two of the foremost universities in the world, Harvard and Princeton, and held very high seats. And yet, I don't know what his bank account is, so but I would venture to say he's probably not a multi-millionaire. And a multi-millionaire to me is a person who has at least $10 million cash. That's a multi-millionaire to me. So and as I say, I've not looked at his bank account. I have no idea what it is. But having served at these two universities for a number of years, his and not having achieved that status of material wealth, but having been involved in political campaigns, and I think the last one was with this guy that's the communist, who's a multi-millionaire. He's from Vermont. I forget his name.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Sanders. That's the guy. Now that guy, he's a communist, dressed as a socialist, but he's a multi-millionaire, and he made his money as a politician. And you look at the previous president, the mulatto president, and you look at previous presidents, the first black president out of Arkansas. These guys came into those offices not at all wealthy, but they left those offices multi-millionaires, worth at least $10 million cash in their bank accounts.
Right.
They probably have lots more than that, but that's my bottom line for what a multi-millionaire is. You could take $10 million. You could go to the bank, and if you chose, tell them to give me my money. I want my money out, and I want you to put it in that van out there, because I'm taking it out of this bank, and they'd have to give them $10 million in greenbacks. That to me is my definition of what a multi-millionaire is. But nonetheless, so Dr. West, has seen how these politicians got rich, and he's looked at himself and he said, "Look, chances of me living to be 100 years old are very slim to none. So I've got a few more years, maybe another 10, 20 years of life, and I want to live them in luxury. And how do I do that? I do like my boy Bernie Sanders or some of these other Democrats. I get involved in one of these political campaigns, and I could siphon off several $1 billion, and that's what I'm going to do.
Well,
And
well,
I know how to use the rhetoric to get that done, because I've used that same rhetoric to be paid, say $200,000 a year as a professor, and that's all he's doing, in my
well,
opinion.
well, Bob, there's nothing wrong with that opinion. Well, I could see too why I noticed that he's married to an Iranian, so that could show why he supports the Arabs as well. Just got married in 2021, I believe, and by running for this office of president, it also gives him more publicity and more exposure to all the other universities and corporations out there, and he can become a speaker on demand. And you know how well these politicians that just go out of government or who do
Right.
how much money they make off of public speaking. So, and then not only that, he may even be given his own talk show, Bob. I mean, there's a lot of things that, and I think he should have something. He should have a platform like that because the man is an intellectual heavyweight, and what he says it carries a lot of weight. But I think that if he could, like, focus in and say, okay, like you were saying earlier, say black people need reparations. And don't go along with what Glenn Laurie say, oh, black people don't need more money thrown at them. They need spirituality. I mean, if you get 350 big ones, Bob, don't you think you could buy you some spirituality? And I don't mean spirit, the drink either. I mean spirituality.
Right. I'd buy a church.
Yeah, I mean you could do whatever you want to. You can donate that money to a church to make it better
That's right.
to be able to minister to the people in the community. You know.
That's right. That's right.
So I mean, this guy. I mean, when we have intellectuals like Dr. Laurie who do not see the real importance of reparation, because he even states that I drive a BMW. That's what he states. And he lives there. He's a Boston University professor. So his wife probably doing the same thing. She's also a doctor, a PhD, I believe. So they doing quite well, Bob. They got the tenure. So then maybe they 120,000, 40,000, 150,000, whatever they make, and then they write books and things, Bob, and they publish. They get money from that. And that's another thing with Dr. West running for president now. He has about 20 books out there. And I think Democracy Now! And Race Matters, those books are going to begin to fly off the shelf, Bob.
Yes.
I mean, ain't no doubt about it. And I wish him well, But I think that he should come out and really tell it like it is, that because and bring it out and say all the candidates should either say yay or nay for reparations for descendants of slaves.
I agree with you 1,000%, Mac.
And if he does that, then I mean he's got my vote 100%, because just in having that itself in the primary, that is, I doubt but even if he went all the way, I would still vote for him if he came out and said that blacks should have reparations, and he want all the candidates to have to make us take a stand for or nay reparations. And if he does that,
Absolutely, back, and I agree with you 1,004%. And let me tell you this: if that man were to do that, not only would I go out and work for him like I worked for Obama, but I would also do exactly what the Democrats do. And I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, and I'm not I see myself as an independent. Sometimes I wonder if I'm an American. But my point is this: if he were to do that, I would go out here like the Democrats do. I would vote early, and I would vote often, and I would encourage all of my neighbors to do the same thing: vote early and vote often, because you can vote 3 or 4 times here in Detroit if you know how to manipulate the system. I know that for a fact. So if you get out early enough at 7 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, and then you could go home and have dinner, you could vote 4 or 5 times.
wow, I didn't know that, Bob.
Oh yeah, that's a part of the Detroit system that's been that way since I was in politics myself.
And how they don't catch something like that? I mean, this is for another day, another time, I guess. But you would think they would have caught up by now with a situation like that.
Hey, wait a minute, back. Look, if I'm the counterfeiter, why would I change the counterfeiting? Why would I change the paper that I use as long as it's still passing?
Well, then there's some credibility to the fact that that the Democrat rigged that election last year. I mean, last 2020. That's some credibility there, Bob.
That's right. That's right. But you see, it gets right down to that old question of, did you see it? No, I didn't see it. I was told about it. Well, did you? And then you run into somebody and said, did you see it? So not only did I see it, I did it. You
Right.
did it? Oh, hell yeah. But I'm not going to say it to anybody because that's illegal.
Well,
and I get arrested for that.
That's why I could never understand how the county commissioner executive Dugan won the mayoral election in Detroit as a write-in candidate with a population of 80 to 90% black.
Right.
And you got a very popular, Napoleon running for mayor as well. Very popular.
Right.
Man. It used to be the police chief there, right?
Right. Exactly.
How could Dugan,
he was the sheriff?
Yeah, he became the sheriff afterwards. But before that he was the chief or the assistant chief or something. But how could this other guy of another persuasion come into there and then a write-in ballots? And it has to be just like you explained it, Bob. They got a group.
Vote early and vote often. I mean, that's been a phrase in the black community. It's been laughed about in the black community since I was a little boy, before I even started voting. I would hear my mother and her neighbors talking, but they'd be talking on election day. So, well, honey, you better go vote early and vote often.
Yeah. Well, that is something, Bob. Well, I see that Dr. West is going against the Democrats, and he's if he pulls everything off and he gets out there and get his words out there, then it's gonna kind of make the Democrat rethink what they are doing. If he doesn't, at least it should make the people think. That's the most important thing. If, like he said, Bob, he will be going into Trump country with his with his platform, and he's going to talk
Right.
to Trump supporters one on one and relate to them just as like they got a mother and father, he got a mother and father. So it's gonna be like a
Right.
human being to a human being, and if they can't,
Yes.
and so that way he don't have to create an animosity because he's there for all the people, for their job to
Yes.
protect them. So we look forward to him running here, Bob, and I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your ideas and concerns on this particular topic. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in.
Back. May I say one more thing?
Go ahead, Bob.
I just want to thank you for this this pod that you have. I mean, I'm very grateful that you invite me to come and speak to your audience because they don't know. I don't think many of them would understand how devoted you are to the people of African descent in this country. I've known you now for what, about 20 years, and
Close to 30.
I could say I could say without hesitation that all the time that I've known you, you've always, sometimes to the point of almost boring me, because I said, well, does my brother know that he's, you know, that's not gonna happen. But then you're so convincing in your discussion about what we as a people need to do. And it's real simple. Get together and do what God said do. Love your brother or your with as you love yourself. And that's what I've known you to do. And I hope that the people don't think that I'm trying to patronize you by making these statements, but because they're true, they're factual. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate you thinking enough of me to ask me to give some of my distorted ideas to your audience.
Well, Bob, knowing that you are intellectual to be reckoned with too, a lot of people don't know how brainy you really are. You know, until they listen to you. But I appreciate you coming on here, Bob, and being able to share this platform with me. And I want to have the people out there that come on in and like and share and comment on these topics that we discuss here today, and subscribe to the channel. That'll get us going as well, you know, so we can continue to